Okay, check this shit out, you guys. It's June in Southern California, and for me, that means the start of elderberry season. So I came out here to check my spots, and what I'm finding already is that it's gonna be a weird year for elderberries. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, first of all, let's talk about ID. So here in Southern California, we have the Mexican blue elderberry, and you can recognize it by, it makes these leaf clusters, pairs of leaves with a point, one on the end. The leaf has a central stem, and if you can see that, it has a serrated edge. So that's what you're looking for on leaves. It should have a lime green color. The tree blooms these cream white flowers. A lot of times they're kind of in one flat cluster. This one's a little bit more 3D. And it's a really good way to recognize them. If you're driving down the road, you can see these things blooming, and I'll show you that here in a second. I can see them from a mile away. So springtime is a great time to scout for trees because they're really easy to see from far away. Now, what do I mean about this season being weird? First of all, these should be berries, not flowers. So I have really little confidence these will turn into berries. It's early June here, and by July, August, September, this tree will die back because it's so dry and hot here. So these probably will not produce much fruit, but then here you can see one that has set fruit, and I'm hoping that in maybe a month or two, these will actually be berries I can harvest. So I'm saying this is a weird season, both because it's still blooming here, but then look at this cluster. I've got new fruits that have just set, and then it's like it partial bloomed a while ago and made these giant, now pea-shaped berries. So this cluster's all messed up. These are gonna ripen. These are gonna take a long time to ripen. I don't even know what I'm doing here with these. It's kind of like I was saying in my last video about the turkeys. I came here to look for berries. The berries are weird. I'm gonna keep watching this spot and hopefully I'll get some berries this year. But what I'm gonna do is harvest some of these flowers and we're gonna make elderflower mead. So I'm gonna start picking here, and what I'm looking for is the new flowers that are still white and not yellow and not setting fruit. So this is perfect right here. I'm looking for these. This one where it has kind of those old fruit sets, I'm gonna skip. All I'm gonna do is come and just cut these clusters right into my bag. Anything that looks kind of newish, we're gonna harvest. I'm gonna try to leave the ones that have mini berries still on them. I don't really have an exact amount I need either. Just kind of like, I'm gonna get what I can get and then see what I can make out of it. It's kind of the forager's way. So elderberries are interesting. They grow all over the US. I think on the East Coast they have like red elderberries. These are Mexican blue elderberries. And you can actually see, here's a cluster that's almost ripe. And even though I said this is blue, this is a mutation of the plant where these are actually almost ripe. These are white. These are gonna be white berries on a blue elderberry. So I've tried to work with those. I don't really like them as much. The dark berries have a really good flavor and the light berries are almost like a grape. And I don't know, I'd rather have grapes. So I'm gonna leave those berries. I'm looking for the blue ones. And I'm just gonna walk along here and harvest some clusters of flowers. Oops. Try to keep them out of the dirt. You can see I'm on this, right on this road here. This is a backcountry road, so it's not super busy, but people are coming down this road like 60 miles an hour. It's kind of terrifying. I got about a third of a bag. I'm gonna move down to the next spot. All right, well, sorry, I had to turn the camera off. That road was too crazy. I was just trying to concentrate on getting some flowers, and trash trucks and stuff were driving by at like 70 miles an hour. On my way out of there, I'm actually driving like 50 miles an hour, and a guy came and just went around me like nothing happened, like backcountry 2-lane road. But I did get a nice third half bag of these flowers. These are gorgeous looking. Oh, interesting. They have an interesting aroma that, I always say this, I feel like it's familiar, but I can't actually say what it is. So I haven't worked with these before, but we want to get the flowers off the stems. The stems and the leaves and the seeds of the elderberry tree have cyano compounds, which are toxic. If you're working with elderberries, you should cook them, and then that denatures the cyanotoxin. And if I'm working with these raw flowers, I'm just gonna remove the stem. A little bit is okay. Even if they weren't slightly toxic, I don't want a bunch of green stuff in my wine. I want it to be just the floral scent. So again, I haven't worked with these. I'm gonna try to just start removing these flowers and we'll see how we go. So my first thought here is I can maybe just use a fork to separate the flowers from the stems. It's kind of working. Seems like fingers might be the way to go though. I'm also gonna try to avoid, like these maybe are okay, but I'm gonna try to avoid any big berries, and I'll come through afterwards and pick them out. And the cool thing about doing this outside, yeah, these are not separating very easily, is when I'm done, I just throw that away. Throw that in the yard, and the chickens will take care of it for me. So I got a lot to work through here. I'm not really sure if this is gonna suck or what. Oh yeah, fork's a little bit better on this one. I left them in the bag here for a little while and they got kind of wilty. When I was first picking them in the field, I felt like the flowers were separated. Oh yeah, that's the ticket right there. Even if I just get rid of that, I'm winning, right? But I think I'll probably come back through and pick out these small bits as they occur too. Yeah, this isn't too bad. So it looks like I'm gonna be able to get pretty close to a full Tupperware here. And then we'll decide what to do with it. Okay, so I'm finding actually the key is there'll be like a main stem and then it starts to branch. And so with the fork, if I take smaller bites, like I come down here where it's already branching, then I get most of that off and I'll come back with my hands and clean it up. See, if I come from the top, I just rip off these small stems. Just do a combination of fork and fingers depending on what each cluster is telling me it wants. But I think we'll speed this up for you guys now. I don't know if you could see in the time lapse, but I had this balanced on my knee and about a third of the way in, it flipped over and I spilled a bunch of flowers, which is sad because they're hard to pick back up. I did a pretty good job. There's a little bit of still stem content, but I think it's gonna be okay. And what I have here now is a pound or so, probably 4 cups loose packed of elderflowers. So let's go make some mead. Okay, so this is not a tutorial on how to brew. There's plenty of videos out there on how to make beer or wine. But the main things we need here are sweet water, sweet liquid, and yeast, and a container. So I have my yeast. I don't have a ton of flowers, and I want a lot of flavor, so I'm gonna just make a 1 gallon batch. I could make a 3 gallon, but it's gonna be really light flower flavor. So I'm gonna do 1 gallon, and it's probably too much flour for my 1 gallon container, but we're just gonna try to deal with it. I've already sanitized that. That's what this foam is, it's Star San. And then once I have fermentation going, I'll put an airlock so air can get out, the CO2 can escape, but oxygen can't get in. So I'll put a link in the description for the yeast, the airlock. This is called a bung. This is just an old apple juice jar. And then we're gonna be using honey today for our fermentable sugar. This is honey from my hive out in the yard. So this is raw, unfiltered, organic honey. If I was doing a full 5 or 6 gallon batch and I wanted 14% alcohol, I'd put 15 pounds of honey. So let's scale 5 gallons down to 1 gallon. So 15 divided by 5 down to 1, 15 divided by 5 is 3 pounds of honey. But I actually don't want to make this like a 14% drink because it'll be too strong. I think it'll just taste like solvent. And this is going to be a really subtle flavor from the flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and cut down the sugar. I'm going to do 2 pounds of honey as much water as it takes to fill this with these in there, and then yeast. So all I'm gonna do first is weigh out 2 pounds of honey and then just get it melted in some water. And I don't wanna actually cook it, I wanna keep that raw. And I don't wanna use a full gallon because I wanna be able to put cold water on top to cool this off quickly. So let's get to that right now. So like I said, I want 2 pounds of honey. This has been sitting around for a while, so it's kind of crystallized, but that's part of why we're gonna melt it. It's tempting when you're making mead to just pour honey into the carboy and then the water and hope that the yeast will agitate everything, but really it just won't mix. The honey will just sit in the bottom in a layer and the water will sit on top and the yeast will never go. So it's really important if you're making a mead or anytime you're adding sugar or honey to a brew that you really integrate it in and not rely on yeast to do that. Okay, that's almost 2 pounds. Okay, there's 2 pounds. And I'm just gonna add basically as little water as I can to get this dissolved. And you wanna be really careful if you're putting sugar like this into a pot, overheat, and it all sunk, I'll scorch that honey. So I really have it on really low, and I'm gonna start stirring immediately as that water comes to temp because I don't want this honey to burn. Okay, I've got my honey dissolved. I've got my comically large funnel, which I also sanitized. And I'm just gonna pour the honey water in. And the reason why I didn't put the whole gallon is because this is 150 degree now. So this gives me lots of room to add cold water. Next, I'm gonna add in my flowers, and I feel like they're probably not gonna go nicely through this funnel. But that's why it's comically large. Yeah, they're kind of sticking. So in that case, what we'll do is sanitize a chopstick, and we'll just work them through. Shoot, it's gonna take a second. All right, we'll be right back. So you can see what I'm talking about here. There's the honey solution and here's the water, and it's already separated. This is heavier because of all the sugar. This will never really mix on its own. So we have to do it mechanically. So I'm gonna put the lid on real tight and I'm gonna just shake it. And this is putting oxygen in, so I wanna make sure did you hear that? Psh! I wanna make sure that I let oxygen in. The other thing we're doing is we're integrating all that water, and we are cooling the solution off here too, because like I said, the honey water was like 150. The rest of this is just filtered tap water. So I'm gonna just keep adding a little bit of water. You could do this all in one step. I'm just kind of taking it slow here. So now we're gonna add the yeast. I actually dipped the yeast and these scissors in the sanitizer. This is the brand is Lalvin, and it's yeast EC1118, which is a champagne yeast. It'll ferment really dry. It'll leave almost no sugar, and it's really good for kind of white wines. This is for a 5-gallon batch, and I'm only doing 1 gallon, obviously, but it doesn't hurt to have too much yeast. And then we'll shake it one more time to integrate the yeast. But you can see why I left headroom. It's harder to shake, it's harder to get air in when it's so tight to the top. And the last thing we're gonna do right now is fit this airlock. And so I just dipped this into the sanitizer. And if you don't know this, you need your cork to be really dry. Otherwise it just pops out from the pressure. So I like to dry it's actually called a bung stopper. And I like to dry the lip of my container. And then you give it like a half twist. And you'll see if you don't have it right, it'll slowly work its way up because this taper and the spring of the rubber will push it up. But I think this is gonna hold. All right, so that's basically gonna wrap up this video. This is gonna ferment for a couple of weeks and then it needs to settle, so I won't be able to drink it for at least like a month or two. But we'll come back and make another video and we'll see how it turned out. Elderberries are a great thing to forage in California. They grow all the way up and down the state, along creek sides, along roadsides. And the season goes from south to north. So usually I'm harvesting berries right now in June, and then the berries will be ripe up in Northern California by like August or September. So right now I have flowers still. Chances are you do too. You can get out there and make yourself some mead or wine. You could just put sugar, or you could put these into vodka and add some sugar and water and make like a elderflower liqueur. There's a lot of great options. There's a lot of free food out there. It's delicious and it's exciting to be out there. So thanks for watching this, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.